of Cleveland.com after the Browns' 13-6 victory over the Steelers. Well, what does this all mean for Shedeur Sanders, who threw one touchdown pass to Harold Fannin and 2 interceptions in this game? I think it means a lot, actually. He didn't take huge strides towards that QB1 job for 2026, but I thought he took some steps forward once again. And I think that's important. That's what the Browns are looking for. They're looking for him to make incremental progress week by week. And then when they get to the end of the 7 games, they will decide if they want to draft a quarterback or if they want to stick with Shedeur and move forward with him as their QB1 in 2026. Now, the corollary to this is the fact that this victory knocked them down 3 notches in NFL draft order to number 6 right now. So even if they wanted to get their hands on one of the top 3 quarterbacks coming out in this draft, it just got a little tougher. So not only did Shedeur win the football game to add to his resume, but he also made it more difficult for the Browns to land his replacement.
It's not just a bad season for the Cleveland Browns. What is happening in Ohio right now could be the biggest scandal in NFL history, and no one in the mainstream sports media wants to talk about it. We're seeing a complete breakdown of the organization, with planned sabotage, systematic discrimination, and a cover-up that goes all the way to the top. This isn't just a guess. This isn't crazy talk about conspiracy theories. This is proof that a head coach is trying to ruin his own quarterback's career. And the evidence is so strong that it should lead to federal investigations. Kevin Stefanski, the offensive genius who Browns owners thought would finally end their decades-long curse, is reportedly losing his power in what insiders say is an unprecedented demotion. But the real story here is much more complicated than just a change in coaches or a fight for power. We're talking about planned sabotage of a new quarterback. We're talking about civil rights violations that are happening right in front of our eyes. We're talking about a conspiracy that's so obvious that even casual fans can see it happening right now. And we're talking about a young black quarterback named Shedeur Sanders, who might just bring down the whole corrupt system. Let me tell you the whole story of what's going on in Cleveland. When you put all the pieces together, this story becomes very explosive. The Cleveland Browns are falling apart from the inside out, and what we're seeing is the end of a coaching staff based on lies, incompetence, and something much worse that no one wants to say out loud. But I'm going to say it because someone needs to, and the proof is too strong to ignore. Kevin Stefanski has been pretending to be a top NFL coach for years, hiding behind Coach of the Year awards that didn't make sense to anyone who actually watched the games. The guy has fooled the football world with talk of new offensive strategies and improving quarterbacks. But here's a problem for anyone who is defending him. Name one quarterback that Kevin Stefanski has really helped. Go ahead and take your time. Think about it a lot. You can't do it because it hasn't happened yet. Not once, not ever. Every quarterback who did well under Stefanski had their own skills, football smarts, and athletic gifts that had nothing to do with the Cleveland coaching staff. And now that Shedeur Sanders is showing real franchise quarterback potential, even though he is being set up to fail at every turn, the emperor has no clothes. The truth about how completely and utterly incompetent Stefanski is finally coming out, and the lie is falling apart faster than anyone could have thought. People who care about honesty in professional sports should be scared by what people are saying about the Browns facility. According to several people who know what's going on, these could be Kevin Stefanski's last games as head coach of the Cleveland Browns. Some people who know what's going on have said that if Shedeur Sanders somehow wins the last 2 games of the season, Stefanski might be able to keep his job to save face for the company. But let's be very clear about one thing right now. No matter what, Kevin Stefanski should not be able to keep his job. No matter how these last games go, the man has been terrible at his job throughout history, and the evidence against him keeps piling up, showing that his failures go far beyond just being incompetent and into areas that should worry anyone who believes in fair play and equal opportunity. Andrew Berry, the Browns general manager, seems to be in charge of what looks like a hostile takeover of the team's football operations. And to be honest, it's about time someone with real vision took charge of that mess. Berry was the one who came up with the idea for Shedeur Sanders in the first place. Berry made the controversial choice to trade Joe Flacco and start a competition for the quarterback position. If Andrew Berry hadn't stepped in and been willing to go over Kevin Stefanski's head, we wouldn't be able to see Shedeur Sanders play right now. Take a moment to think about that. The Browns would still be stuck in the same awful quarterback carousel they've been on for the past 20 years if the general manager hadn't ignored the head coach's wishes and basically made this happen. That's not just a problem with the organization. That shows that the head coach was so wrong about how to judge talent that his own front office had to go against his judgment. Everyone can see that there is a conspiracy going on in Cleveland, but not enough people are willing to talk about it honestly. Let's just take the Band-Aid off right now. Kevin Stefanski didn't want to play against Shedeur Sanders. Anyone who has been paying even a little attention to how this season went can see that. There is something much deeper and more troubling going on than just disagreements about football or strategy when people refuse to give this talented young quarterback a real chance at the starting job. We need to be honest about the chance that civil rights are being broken here. We need to realize that the coaching staff is setting up a young black quarterback to fail on purpose because they never wanted him on the field in the first place. This isn't crazy guesswork, using race as an excuse, or being too sensitive. This is pattern recognition based on facts and behaviors that anyone can see and check. What I call the wristband incident is the most damning piece of evidence in this whole sordid story. And if you haven't heard about this yet, get ready to have your mind blown. In a real NFL game, Kevin Stefanski's coaching staff gave Shedeur Sanders the wrong plays to wear on his wristband. Read that sentence again and let its full meaning sink in. While he was trying to lead the offense in a real game with real consequences, the head coach and his offensive staff gave him the wrong plays. This isn't just a small mistake. This isn't a mistake that happened by accident or a failure to communicate. This is planned, intentional sabotage. Name another coach in the history of professional football who has given their own player the wrong plays. You can't do it because this level of stupidity or malice is almost never seen in modern sports. You're not coaching if you set up situations where a player will fail, give him the wrong information and not enough protection, and then act surprised when he has trouble. You're doing something bad. And that's exactly what happened to Shedeur Sanders in Cleveland. The young quarterback was put in a situation that was completely impossible because his offensive line couldn't protect a practice dummy, let alone a mobile NFL quarterback facing top pass rushers. On social media, Browns fans have been making jokes that Shedeur is playing behind gym teachers and librarians. And to be honest, that's not even an exaggeration right now. Injuries have destroyed the offensive line all season long. Definitely. But Kevin Stefanski's handling of that situation has been so bad that it goes beyond bad luck and into the realm of real malpractice. Matt Blank, an analyst, recently publicly criticized Stefanski for his completely confusing decisions about the offensive line, especially how he used Wyatt Teller and how he kept switching players at the right guard position, which makes no strategic sense at all. In his last 3 starts, Kevin Jenkins has let 9 pressures through, and he didn't even finish 2 of those games. 9 pressures in what was basically 1 full game of snaps. That's not just a bad performance, that's actively bad for your quarterback's health right now and his career in the long run. But Kevin Stefanski keeps making mistakes in how he handles things. Rotating players who clearly aren't ready for NFL competition and refusing to make the obvious changes that any good offensive coordinator would make right away. There are a lot of injuries to the offensive line, and they have been well documented. Jedrick Wills, Jack Conklin, and Harold Fannin are all hurt or sick, which has made it very hard for the Browns to put together a group of blockers that can even come close to being good. But this is what makes good coaches different from bad ones. Good coaches know how to deal with bad situations. Great coaches come up with creative ways to work around the problems with their players and keep their best players safe. Kevin Stefanski has not done either of those things. Instead, he's basically thrown Sanders to the wolves week after week and then had the nerve to act shocked and let down when the results haven't been perfect. Stefanski's strange habit of praising the other teams while putting down and downplaying his own players during press conferences makes this situation even more frustrating for anyone who is paying attention. If you watch his most recent press conference before the Pittsburgh Steelers game, you'll see exactly what I mean in painful detail. He spent more time praising Aaron Rodgers, raving about TJ Watt's skills, and describing the Steelers' defense as if it were an unstoppable force of nature than he did showing even the slightest confidence in his own team's ability to compete. This is the same guy who didn't give Shedeur Sanders a fair chance for most of the season, but he'll gladly spend 5 minutes talking about how great and unstoppable the other team's quarterback and defense are. Stefanski talked a lot about how the Steelers' defense is taking the ball away and sacking the quarterback at a good rate during that press conference. He called it a disruptive defense that makes things very hard. Kevin, thanks for the scouting report. It's great for your rookie quarterback to hear these things from his own head coach. Instead of talking about how your offense will take advantage of their weaknesses, how confident you are in your game plan, or how good your players are, you're basically saying that your opponent is better than you in almost every way that can be measured. That's not how to coach. That's not being a leader. That's giving up before the fight even starts. The game between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns shows everything that is wrong with Kevin Stefanski's way of coaching. He said in public that Pittsburgh is a tough place for a young quarterback because they have a lot of different defensive fronts and coverage schemes that change all the time. Okay, that's fine. Yes, every NFL defense has its own problems, especially for rookie quarterbacks. But how are you going to help your quarterback deal with those problems? What specific changes are you making to your game plan to give Shedeur the best chance to succeed against their pressure packages? What plays are you coming up with that will take advantage of their weaknesses and make it easy for him to complete passes? No sound. Just more general praise for the other team and vague platitudes about playing good defense and getting 11 hats to the ball, whatever that corporate coach talk means. We haven't even talked about how Quinshon Judkins died yet. Another huge blow to an offense that was already having a hard time finding its rhythm or identity. Judkins had to have surgery that will keep him out for the rest of the season. This makes the Browns even weaker at running back, which is the last thing they needed right now. Stefanski said he was confident that Dylan Sampson might get better from his own injuries, but he didn't really mean it. But that's just more of the same hopeful thinking and crossed fingers that have been a part of his time in Cleveland. Hope is not a plan. It's not coaching or planning to pray that injured players will suddenly get better and play well again. It's carelessness that looks like hope. The most interesting thing about this whole thing is how Kevin Stefanski talked about the upcoming game against Pittsburgh and how strange it was that he focused on their offensive weapons. He talked about how Myles Garrett is 1 sack away from breaking an important NFL record. He also pointed out that Garrett has never sacked Aaron Rodgers in his entire career, even though he has had many chances to do so. What is the reason for that? Because Aaron Rodgers throws the ball quickly and the Jets use a lot of RPO plays that lead to quick passes that stop edge rushers. In other words, good offensive coaching makes the quarterback safer and helps him do what he does best. The Steelers do it all the time. The Jets do it well. Kevin Stefanski, who is supposed to be an offensive genius, can't figure out how to use similar ideas to protect his rookie quarterback, who really needs that kind of help and planning. Stefanski talked about how Pittsburgh might fill in for DK Metcalf while he is suspended for the next game. He showed more strategic insight and detailed analysis of their offense than he has all season for his own offense. He talked intelligently about Kenneth Gainwell being a good player in the passing game, someone the quarterback trusts and who can be used well in a lot of different places on the field. He talked about Adam Thielen, Valdez-Scantling, a lot of tight ends, and a lot of running backs who can all catch the ball and make it hard for defenders to match up. He clearly gets the basic idea of making offensive weapons that can do a lot of different things and putting players in the right places to succeed based on their own skills. So why hasn't he done any of that for his own offense? Why is Shedeur Sanders left with only a few weapons, no protection, and a game plan that seems to be meant to show off his weaknesses instead of his many strengths? If you care about the Browns' success, it was especially interesting to hear people talk about Jaylen Warren's great game against the Lions. Stefanski praised Warren a lot for running very hard and getting 143 rushing yards in one game. His brilliant plan to stop Warren and keep Pittsburgh's rushing attack in check. Playing good defense means getting 11 hats around the football and swarming it. Coach, this is a completely new way of looking at things. That's some really new strategic thinking. Your own running game, on the other hand, is almost non-existent. Your offensive line can't even move a little bit at the line of scrimmage, and your quarterback is literally running for his life on every drop back because you won't plan quick passes or hot routes. Anyone who is closely following this situation can see that Andrew Berry is the only person in the whole Cleveland Browns organization who has a clear plan and knows how to do his job. Berry knew right away that the Browns had to stop their never-ending quarterback carousel and take a calculated risk on some truly elite young talent. Berry had the guts and determination to trade Joe Flacco, even though it would cause a lot of trouble. This gave Shedeur Sanders a chance to finally show off his great skills. Berry has been working hard to make sure his team is successful in the long term, while Kevin Stefanski has been clinging to old offensive schemes and refusing to change how the NFL really works. The gap between Kevin Stefanski and the front office is getting bigger and bigger every day. Sources close to the situation say that Jimmy Haslam has finally lost his patience with Stefanski's ongoing mismanagement of the roster, especially the offensive line disaster that has put his quarterback investment at risk. Haslam is said to be getting more involved and hands-on with football operations, which usually means that the head coach is on borrowed time. When owners start getting involved in day-to-day football decisions and personnel issues, it's usually because they don't trust their coach to fix things and make them better. Based on what has happened, Kevin Stefanski has every right to lose all faith and trust in him. The Cleveland media has been covering what is essentially Stefanski's demotion in great detail, with Andrew Berry taking over almost all football operations and decision-making power. This isn't a small change in how power works in the organization that only people who work there can see. This is a complete overhaul of the entire command structure, with the general manager having more power than the head coach in terms of authority, final say, and strategic direction. When this kind of power shift happens in most NFL teams, everyone knows that the head coach's time is up. It won't be long before the announcement of the termination comes. It's just a matter of time, and finding the right time. Long-suffering Browns fans are even more frustrated and heartbroken because they can clearly see Shedeur Sanders' real potential and franchise quarterback traits, even though there are huge obstacles in his way that were put there on purpose. The young quarterback has consistently shown amazing calmness, great accuracy, and the ability to make smart choices that are far beyond what anyone could reasonably expect from a rookie playing in such a dysfunctional and hostile environment. Think about what Shedeur could really do if he had good coaching, an offensive line that gave him more than 2 seconds in the pocket, and a creative plan that showed off his many strengths instead of his few weaknesses. Shedeur Sanders could win these last 2 games and end the season on a high note that sets up next year. If that really happens, it will have nothing to do with Kevin Stefanski's coaching, and it won't help or hurt it in any way. Sanders came into the NFL with a lot of football knowledge, a legendary work ethic, and natural skills and abilities that have nothing to do with Cleveland's terrible coaching staff. He's the son of Deion Sanders, one of the best athletes in history, and a man who knows what it takes to be successful at the very top of professional sports. Shedeur has been getting ready for this moment his whole life, and no amount of disorganization or planned sabotage will stop him from showing off his skills whenever he gets the chance. This situation has effects that go far beyond the Cleveland Browns and their ongoing problems. We're seeing on film and in press conferences how systemic bias and organizational incompetence can almost ruin a young player's career before it even gets off the ground. If Andrew Berry hadn't stepped in and made it happen, Shedeur might have wasted the whole season sitting on the bench while Kevin Stefanski kept putting out obviously worse options. That's not just bad coaching or bad football. That's a real crime that needs to be looked into by the police and held accountable. The patterns we've seen all season long point to something much worse than just bad luck or bad coaching. The wristband gave out the wrong plays on purpose. The stubborn refusal to play Shedeur even though he was clearly talented and ready. The complete failure to provide enough protection or make simple changes to the plan. Always praising your opponents while systematically putting down your own players. These aren't just one-time events that can be explained away. They're part of a bigger pattern of behavior that makes it very likely that Kevin Stefanski never wanted Shedeur Sanders to succeed and worked hard to make sure he didn't. Some people might think this is conspiracy theory thinking or looking for bad guys where there aren't any. But when the proof is too strong and can't be denied, conspiracy theories turn into conspiracy facts. Every choice Kevin Stefanski made about Shedeur Sanders this season made it harder for the young quarterback to succeed. That's not how to coach. That's not tough love or good growth. That's just plain sabotage. And it's past time we called it exactly what it is, without sugarcoating it or making excuses for bad behavior in the workplace. The Department of Justice should definitely look into this, with all the power of federal law enforcement. Violations of civil rights in professional sports are not a joke or something to take lightly. And when there is a clear pattern of behavior that strongly suggests racial bias or systematic discrimination against a protected class, it needs to be looked into very carefully by the highest levels of government. This isn't about being too sensitive, using race as an excuse, or playing the identity politics game. This is about making sure that all players, no matter what their background or family ties are, get truly equal treatment and fair chances to show off their skills without being sabotaged on purpose. The FBI should officially look into the Cleveland Browns organization. Federal officials should look closely at whether the group violated Shedeur Sanders' civil rights by making the workplace hostile on purpose to make sure he failed and ruined his chances of getting a good job. There might even be congressional hearings in this case. This situation has clearly grown beyond a simple sports story or local interest piece to something that raises important issues about fairness, equal opportunity, and systemic bias in major American institutions that get tax breaks.